Commander Jake Morrison was drinking coffee when the universe changed forever. He stood on the bridge of the human research station Aurora's Edge, watching the stars through the main window. The coffee was terrible as always, but it was hot and it kept him awake during the night shift. The first sign of trouble came from Sensor Officer Linda Price. She looked at her screen and frowned. "Commander, I'm getting some weird readings. Something big just appeared near Earth." Jake set down his coffee cup. "Define big." "Really big, sir. Like moon-sized big. Actually make that multiple moon-sized objects." Jake walked over to her station. The sensor display showed massive shapes appearing around Earth like magic tricks. One moment space was empty. The next moment it was full of alien ships. Ships that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. "How many?" Jake asked. Linda's fingers danced over her controls. 12 major vessels, sir. Each one is about the size of Manhattan. And they're not moving. They're just sitting there in orbit around Earth. Before Jake could respond, every communication system on the station started screaming. Emergency signals came from Luna Base, Mars Colony, the Jupiter mining station, and dozens of other human outposts. All of them were reporting the same thing. Alien ships everywhere. The main communication screen flickered to life. A face appeared that made everyone on the bridge stop talking. It wasn't human. It wasn't even close to human. The creature looked like it was made of living crystal, with light flowing through its body like water. Its eyes were pure white, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music and thunder at the same time. "Attention, primitive species of Sol 3, the alien said. "I am Council Speaker Veltar of the Galactic Council. Your expansion into the galaxy ends today." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was it. First contact with alien life, and it wasn't going well. Speaker Veltar continued. "For 50 of your years we have sent messages to your world. You have ignored them all. Your species has committed 17 violations of galactic preservation laws. You terraform worlds without permission. You travel between stars without proper authorization. Most serious of all, you refuse to acknowledge the authority of the Council." The alien's image grew larger on the screen. Behind it, Jake could see the inside of the alien ship. It was huge, with corridors that stretched beyond sight. Other aliens moved in the background, all of them looking like different types of nightmares. Some had too many arms. Others had no arms at all. One looked like a walking tree with eyes. "Your crimes cannot be ignored," Veltar said. "The Council offers you one choice. Surrender your weapons. Submit to relocation protocols. Allow us to move your species to designated worlds where you will be properly supervised. Refuse and your species will be eliminated. You have one of your days to decide." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew. They all stared back at him with wide eyes. Finally, Communications Officer Bob Turner spoke up. "Sir, what do we do?" Before Jake could answer, another transmission came through. This one was from Admiral Lisa Hayes on Luna Base. Jake knew the Admiral well. She was tough, smart, and had never backed down from a fight in her 30-year career. Admiral Hayes appeared on screen. She looked calm, which was somehow scarier than if she had looked panicked. "Attention all human forces," she said. "You've all heard the alien ultimatum. I'm sure you're wondering what our response will be." Jake leaned forward. This was the moment that would decide humanity's future. Admiral Hayes smiled. Then she started laughing. It wasn't a crazy laugh or a scared laugh. It was the kind of laugh someone makes when they hear a really good joke. The kind of laugh that spreads to other people even when they don't know what's funny. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Hayes said, still chuckling, "the Galaxy Council wants us to surrender. They want us to give up our weapons and let them relocate us like pets. They think we're going to roll over and play dead because they have bigger ships." Her smile got wider. Recommendation negative. "All human forces prepare for Protocol Omega. Time to show our new friends what humans do when someone tells us we can't do something." The transmission ended, but Jake could hear something amazing happening. From every station in the solar system, from every human colony across dozens of star systems, the same sound was coming through the communication channels. Laughter. It started small, a few chuckles from the Mars colony, some giggles from the asteroid mining stations, but it grew and grew until it seemed like every human in the galaxy was laughing at the same time. Jake found himself laughing too. He couldn't help it. The whole situation was ridiculous. Aliens show up with ships the size of cities, threaten to destroy humanity and expect humans to just give up. Had they never met a human before? Sensor Officer Price was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. "Sir," she said between giggles, "what's Protocol Omega?" Jake's laughter died down a bit. Protocol Omega was the emergency plan Admiral Hayes had developed years ago. It was the plan for what to do if humanity ever faced complete destruction. Most people thought it was too crazy to ever use. Protocol Omega, Jake said, is what happens when you tell humans they can't do something. It's when we stop following the rules and start making up new ones. Communications Officer Turner looked confused. "But sir, those ships could destroy Earth. They could wipe out every human colony. How can we fight something like that?" Jake looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien ships were waiting for humanity's surrender. They probably expected humans to be scared. They probably expected begging and crying and desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, they got laughter. "Turner," Jake said, "how many humans have ever backed down from impossible odds?" Turner thought about it. "Well, sir, there was the Alamo, and Thermopylae, and that time at New Singapore when the colonists held off the pirates with nothing but mining equipment." "Exactly," Jake said, "and now we get to add the time aliens told us to surrender to that list." Jake activated the station's communication system. "Attention, Aurora's Edge crew. This is Commander Morrison. We've just received humanity's first official alien contact. They've demanded our surrender. As per Admiral Hayes' orders, we are implementing Protocol Omega. All crew to battle stations. Time to show the galaxy what humans do for fun." The laughter on the bridge got louder. Jake picked up his terrible coffee and took a sip. It suddenly tasted pretty good. Council War Master Threx stared at the communication displays with complete confusion. In his 3,000 years of military service, he had overseen the surrender of 47 different species. The process was always the same. Show overwhelming force. Make clear demands. Watch the primitives collapse in terror. This was not going according to plan. "War Master," said his aide, a tall creature with 6 arms and no visible head. "The humans are making noise." "I can hear that," Threx growled. His species looked like giant armored bears with too many teeth. When he was confused, his fur stood on end. Right now he looked like a very large, very angry porcupine. "What kind of noise is it?" The aide consulted its data pad. "Our xenopsychology experts believe they call it laughter, War Master. It appears to be a stress response." Threx's confusion deepened. Stress response? It sounded more like the humans were enjoying themselves. "Show me the breakdown by colony." The main display lit up with a map of human space. Every human settlement was marked with audio levels. From the mining colonies around distant stars to the research stations in deep space, the same sound was coming from everywhere. Laughter. "War Master," called Science Officer Kyle from her station. "Kill species looked like walking flowers with too many eyes. We're receiving a transmission from one of the human vessels. It's not a surrender." "Put it on screen," Threx ordered. The display showed a human male in a blue uniform. He looked young and confident, not at all like someone facing extinction. Behind him, other humans moved around doing various tasks. None of them looked scared. "This is Captain Ben Parker of the exploration vessel Horizon's Call," the human said. "We received your surrender demand. Thanks, but no thanks. Instead, we've prepared a little care package for you." Threx leaned forward. "A care package? Was this some kind of primitive peace offering?" Captain Parker smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We figured you might want to know what you're dealing with before you make any big mistakes. So we've put together a little history lesson. Hope you find it educational." The transmission ended, but immediately another signal came through. This one was a massive data package, bigger than anything the Council had ever received from a primitive species. It contained text, images, videos, and audio files, thousands of them. "Science Officer Kyle," Threx said, "analyze that data immediately. I want to know what these humans think is so important." While Kyle worked, reports came in from across the human solar system. Every human settlement was responding the same way. They weren't panicking. They weren't trying to evacuate. Instead, they seemed to be preparing for some kind of celebration. "War Master," Kyle called out, "you need to see this." The main screen filled with images from human history. Battle scenes mostly. Threx watched humans fighting with primitive weapons against impossible odds. There were humans standing on walls while enemy armies surrounded them. Humans charging across fields into overwhelming firepower. Humans fighting in space with nothing but converted mining ships. "This makes no sense," Threx muttered. Why are they showing us their defeats? War Master, Kyle said quietly. I don't think these are defeats. More images flowed across the screen. Humans holding positions against enemies 10 times their number. Humans jury-rigging weapons from farming equipment. Humans evacuating civilians while singing songs. Then came the audio files. Speeches from human leaders during their worst moments. We shall never surrender, said one. Nuts, said another when asked to give up. Come and take them, said a third when demanded to hand over weapons. Threx's fur was standing completely on end now. These humans. They document their last stands like achievements. War Master, his communications officer called out. We're receiving similar packages from every human settlement. They're all sending us the same message, which is, come and take it. Threx sat heavily in his command chair. The council had protocols for every type of species they encountered. Warrior races were defeated through superior technology. Peaceful species were intimidated through shows of force. Intelligent species were convinced through logical argument. But what do you do with a species that treats extinction like a fun challenge? Science Officer Kyle, Threx said. What does our xenopsychology database say about humans? Kel's flower-like head drooped. We have very little data, War Master. They were classified as a minor species not worth detailed study. But based on what I'm seeing, she paused. Continue. War Master, I think we may have made an error. Look at these population distribution patterns. Humans spread to environments that should kill them. Desert worlds, ice worlds, worlds with poisonous atmospheres. They don't just adapt to hostile conditions, they seek them out. More data flowed across the screens. Human colonies on worlds that other species had declared uninhabitable. Humans living in asteroid belts on the edges of black holes in the path of solar flares. And their social structure, Kyle continued, it's completely unlike anything in council space. They have no central authority, no species-wide government. Each colony makes its own decisions. Some are democracies, some are dictatorships, some are anarchies. They can't even agree on how to organize themselves, but somehow they all agree to keep expanding. Threx stood up and paced around the bridge. So we're dealing with a species that colonizes hostile worlds for fun and can't organize themselves properly. This should make them easier to defeat, not harder. War Master, Kyle said softly. There's more. Look at their military history. They don't just fight external enemies. They fight each other, constantly. For thousands of years, they've been at war with themselves, and every war makes them better at fighting. The main screen showed human weapons development over time, from clubs and rocks to ships that could travel between stars, all of it driven by conflict. They don't just prepare for war, War Master. They are war. It's not something they do, it's something they are. Threx stopped pacing. Around the bridge, his crew was looking at the human data with growing unease. Status report on the human military response. His tactical officer, a creature that looked like a giant shrimp with wings, consulted its instruments. War Master, this is very strange. They're not mobilizing for defense. They're mobilizing for offense. Explain. Human ships are moving toward us, not away. Their orbital platforms are rotating to target our vessels. Their communication chatter suggests they're excited. Excited? Yes, War Master. Our translation software is having difficulty with some of their expressions, but they appear to be looking forward to the conflict. Threx looked at the display showing Earth. The blue-green world hung in space, surrounded by the Council's mighty fleet. 12 ships that could crack planets, weapons that could boil oceans, technology that had conquered half the galaxy. And somewhere down there, humans were laughing. War Master, came a new voice from the communications station. We're receiving another transmission. This one is from their military leader. Put it through. Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on screen again. She was standing in what looked like a military command center. Behind her, humans worked at various stations. They all looked busy and confident. Council War Master Threx, Admiral Hayes said. I assume that's you in the big ship with all the pointy bits. We've reviewed your surrender demand. After careful consideration, we've decided to make a counteroffer. Threx's fur bristled. Counteroffer? Primitives didn't make counteroffers to the Council. Admiral Hayes smiled. You wanted Earth surrender. Instead, we invite you to surrender to us. You've got nice ships and impressive technology. We could use both. Join humanity willingly, and we'll teach you how to have real fun. Refuse, and we'll teach you anyway. But it'll be more educational for us and less pleasant for you. The transmission ended. Threx looked around his bridge. Every member of his crew was staring at him. War Master, his aide said quietly. What do we do with a species that responds to conquest with a job offer? Threx didn't have an answer. General Rick Santos was having the best day of his military career. He stood in the command center of the Mars defense grid, watching alien ships move through his sector like they owned the place. Most military commanders would be terrified. Santos was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. Sir, said Lieutenant Kate Williams from her pilot station, Council probe approaching Defense Platform 7. It's scanning our equipment. Santos nodded. Let it look. Then show it what human hospitality looks like. The alien probe was beautiful in a deadly way. It looked like a silver teardrop the size of a building, moving through space without any visible engines. Its hull gleamed with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. This was technology thousands of years ahead of anything humans had built. Probe is targeting Platform 7, reported Tactical Officer Jim Chen. Energy readings are off the charts, sir. That thing could vaporize our entire defense grid. Probably, Santos agreed. Williams, you ready for your history lesson? Lieutenant Williams was strapped into the cockpit of a converted cargo hauler called the Lucky Strike. It was an old ship, built for moving supplies between Mars colonies. Its armor was basically sheet metal. Its weapons were mining lasers that had been jury-rigged for combat. Against the alien probe, it was about as effective as a paper airplane against a battleship. Ready as I'll ever be, sir, Williams said over the radio. Her voice was steady, but Santos could hear the excitement underneath. Permission to show these aliens how we play? Permission granted. Give them something to remember us by. The alien probe fired a single beam at Defense Platform 7. The beam passed right through the platform's shields like they weren't even there. The platform's hull began to glow and melt. In seconds, it was reduced to expanding gas and twisted metal. The probe paused, probably expecting the humans to surrender or flee. Instead, it got a cargo hauler flying straight at it with all engines redlined. This is Lieutenant Kate Williams of the Mars Defense Force, came her voice over all communication channels. Message to alien probe, welcome to human space. Next stop, impact crater. The probe's defensive systems activated automatically. Energy shields flared around the alien craft as the Lucky Strike slammed into it. The cargo hauler exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Mars orbit. The probe's shields absorbed the explosion easily, but something unexpected happened. The probe wobbled, just slightly but enough to register on sensors. Did you see that? Santos asked his tactical officer. Yes, sir. The probe's position shifted 3 meters. That impact actually moved it. Santos felt his grin get wider. The probe's shields could stop the explosion, but they couldn't stop momentum. Physics still worked the same way, even with alien technology. Williams' final transmission echoed across Mars space. Scratch 1 alien probe. Next, the probe retreated, probably to report back to the main fleet. Santos watched it go with satisfaction. First contact with alien technology, and humanity had already learned something useful. Sir? Called Communications Officer Amy Foster. We're getting reports from across the solar system. Similar encounters at Jupiter, Saturn, and the asteroid belt. The aliens are probing our defenses. And what are our people doing about it? Foster smiled. The same thing we did, sir. Ramming speed and creative solutions. The Jupiter Mining Consortium used an asteroid mining charge to damage a probe's sensors. The asteroid belt crews are playing hide-and-seek in the rock fields. And the Saturn defense platform just tried to lasso an alien scout ship with a magnetic tether. Santos laughed. Did it work? The tether broke, sir, but they managed to pull some kind of antenna off the alien ship first. While Santos enjoyed the tactical reports, something more important was happening on Earth. Professor Dan Cooper sat in his laboratory at the International Space University, analyzing every piece of alien communication they had received. Cooper was a xenobiologist, but he had never expected to actually meet aliens. Now that they were here, he was treating it like the research opportunity of a lifetime. Professor, said his assistant, Dr. Jane Murphy, I've finished analyzing the Council's communication patterns. The results are interesting. Cooper looked up from his computer. He had been studying alien physiology based on the images they had received. So far, he had identified 12 different species in the Council fleet. All of them were clearly advanced, intelligent, and dangerous. What did you find? Cooper asked. Dr. Murphy pulled up her analysis on the main screen. Their communication style is extremely formal and hierarchical. Every message follows strict protocols. There are specific patterns for superior to inferior communication, peer-to-peer exchanges, and formal declarations. That makes sense for a galactic government. Yes, but here's the interesting part. Their language patterns suggest they've never had to adapt their communication style, ever. For thousands of years, they've been using the same formal structures because every species they encounter accepts their authority immediately. Cooper frowned. You're saying they don't know how to talk to people who disagree with them? Exactly. Look at their ultimatum. It's not a negotiation. It's not even really a threat. It's a formal declaration of intent, the kind you make when you expect immediate compliance. Cooper studied the communication patterns. Dr. Murphy was right. The aliens talked like bureaucrats, not like warriors. Their entire approach was based on the assumption that their authority would be accepted without question. Jane, Cooper said slowly, what happens when a bureaucracy meets a species that doesn't recognize its authority? Well, Dr. Murphy said, based on their behavior patterns, I'd say they don't have protocols for it. They're improvising and they're not very good at it. Cooper stood up and paced around his laboratory. This was big. Bigger than just a military advantage. Get me a connection to Admiral Hayes. I think we've found something important. 20 minutes later, Cooper was explaining his findings to the Admiral and her staff via secure video link. What you're telling me, Admiral Hayes said, is that these aliens are used to everyone rolling over and playing dead the moment they show up? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Cooper replied. They're administrators who became conquerors through technological superiority, but they've never actually had to fight a war against a species that fights back, and their communication style supports this completely. They don't negotiate because they've never had to. They don't adapt their tactics because they've never needed to. They're not warriors, Admiral. They're bureaucrats with big guns. Admiral Hayes leaned back in her chair. Around her, her staff was taking notes and asking questions. Professor Cooper, in your professional opinion, how do you think they'll react to continued resistance? Cooper thought about it. Honestly, I think they'll panic. Everything they've encountered so far has been outside their experience. First we laughed at them. Then we sent them history lessons. Then we started ramming their probes with cargo ships. None of that fits their playbook. And what happens when bureaucrats panic? They make mistakes, Cooper said. Big ones, Admiral Hayes smiled. It was not a nice smile. Professor, I want you to prepare a complete psychological profile of these aliens. I want to know their weaknesses, their blind spots, and their pressure points. If they're bureaucrats, then we're going to treat them like the one thing every human knows how to handle, which is bad customer service, Admiral Hayes said. We're going to complain to the manager. Across human space, similar discoveries were being made. The aliens were advanced, but they were also predictable. They followed patterns and protocols that had worked for thousands of years. The problem was, they had never met humans before. On the research station Aurora's Edge, Commander Jake Morrison watched alien probes move through his sector. His crew had already disabled 2 of them using tactics that shouldn't have worked. Ramming, electronic warfare, and in one case, literally throwing a wrench into the probe's scanning equipment. Commander, called Sensor Officer Linda Price. The aliens are pulling back their probes. Looks like they're regrouping. Morrison nodded. How long until they come back? Unknown, sir. But if I had to guess, I'd say they're trying to figure out what went wrong with their plan. Morrison looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, aliens were having meetings about the human problem. They were probably making charts and writing reports and following procedures. Meanwhile, humans were improvising, adapting, and having the time of their lives. Price, Morrison said, what do you think happens next? Well, sir, Price said with a grin, I think they're going to find out why humans have a reputation for being impossible to kill. War Master Threx had run out of patience. 3 weeks of human laughter, ramming attacks, and what his analysts called creative insubordination had pushed him past his breaking point. The council demanded results, and he was going to deliver them. All ships, he announced over the fleet communication system, prepare for assault operations. Target Luna Command and Earth orbital infrastructure. We will demonstrate the price of defying the council. 50 heavy cruisers move toward Earth's moon like a silver tide. Each ship was a kilometer long and packed with weapons that could level continents. This was not a probe or a demonstration. This was the Council's full military might focused on crushing human resistance once and for all. On Luna Command, Admiral Lisa Hayes watched the alien fleet approach with calm interest. Her defense platforms were outnumbered 10 to 1. Her ships were converted civilian craft and hastily built military vessels. By every measure of military science, the upcoming battle would be a massacre. Hayes activated the fleet communication system. All human forces, this is Admiral Hayes. The aliens are done playing games. Time to show them what happens when you make humans angry. Captain Joe Martinez commanded the defense platform, New Alamo. The platform was built into an asteroid and armed with mining lasers, missile tubes, and a crew of volunteers who had responded to the emergency call by bringing their own guns from home. "Attention alien fleet," Martinez broadcasted on all frequencies. "This is Captain Joe Martinez. Welcome to the neighborhood. Hope you like mariachi music because you're about to hear a lot of it." As the Council ships closed in, Martinez did something that confused every alien tactical analyst in the fleet. He started playing music over all communication channels, loud, energetic mariachi music with trumpets and guitars and singing in Spanish. "What is the tactical purpose of this noise?" demanded Council Tactical Officer Vex. War Master Threx had no answer. Human behavior continued to make no sense. The first exchange of fire began when the Council cruisers opened up with their main batteries. Energy beams that could melt through battlecruiser armor struck the human defense platforms. The platform's shields held for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing. What happened next violated every principle of military tactics in the Council database. Instead of retreating or calling for help, Captain Martinez activated his platform's engines and flew straight at the nearest Council ship, while playing mariachi music at maximum volume. "New Alamo to all stations," Martinez called out cheerfully. "Ramming speed! Who wants to dance?" The New Alamo smashed into the Council cruiser's shields at full speed. The platform's hull cracked and its engines exploded, but the impact sent the alien ship spinning out of formation. "This is insane," muttered War Master Threx. "They're using their defense platforms as missiles." More human platforms joined the attack. The Fort Worth, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Adams, managed to damage a Council ship's engine by ramming it with a platform loaded with mining explosives. The Tombstone actually managed to board a Council vessel by crashing through its hangar bay. But the real confusion came from Commander Beth Turner and her squadron of converted mining ships. Turner commanded 12 vessels that had been hauling asteroids just a month ago. Now they were painted with shark teeth and racing toward the Council fleet like a pack of hunting dogs. "Council ships, this is Commander Beth Turner," she announced over the radio. "Hope you're ready for a Texas barbecue because things are about to get hot." Turner's ships didn't attack in formation. They didn't follow standard military tactics. Instead, they swarmed the Council fleet like angry bees, attacking from random directions and using maneuvers that should have gotten them all killed. The Houston flew upside down while firing its mining lasers into a Council ship's sensors. The Dallas spun like a top while launching mining charges that exploded against alien shields. The Austin actually flew inside a Council ship's engine exhaust and somehow survived long enough to plant explosives on the hull. "Commander Turner," called Admiral Hayes over the radio, "what's your tactical assessment?" "Well, Admiral," Turner replied while her ship dodged alien fire, "they shoot straighter than us, they're faster than us, and their shields are tougher than ours. But they fly like they're following a manual, and we fly like we're trying not to die. I think that gives us an advantage." Turner was right. The Council ships moved in perfect formations and followed established attack patterns. Human ships attacked like they were improvising on the spot, which they were. The battle turned into chaos. Council ships found themselves fighting enemies that appeared from unexpected directions, used unconventional weapons, and seemed to treat the entire battle like a sporting event. Dr. Corweth monitored the battle from the Council command ship and made increasingly disturbing observations. "War Master, the humans are not fighting to win. They're fighting to learn." "Explain," Threx growled. "Every engagement follows the same pattern. Human ships attack, take damage, retreat, then attack again using different tactics. They're testing our weapons, our shields, our response patterns. Each wave teaches them something new." On the tactical display, the pattern became clear. The first wave of human attacks had been suicidal ramming runs. The second wave used coordinated fire to target specific ship systems. The third wave exploited weaknesses the previous attacks had discovered. They're treating this battle like a learning exercise, Dr. Corweth continued. Every ship they lose teaches them how to hurt us better. The humans were losing ships, but they were losing them in the strangest way possible. Every destroyed human vessel managed to damage or disable multiple council ships before going down. Human pilots ejected at the last second, broadcast casual goodbyes to their families, then manually detonated their ship's fusion cores for maximum effect. "Attention, Council Fleet," came a transmission from Admiral Hayes. "This is just the opening round. Hope you're taking notes because the lesson plan is about to get more advanced." That's when the second phase began. Human ships that had been hiding in the asteroid belt suddenly appeared behind the Council Fleet. More ships emerged from behind the moon. Others decloaked from stealth positions that shouldn't have been possible with human technology. "How are they doing this?" Threx demanded. His sensor officer, a creature that looked like a flying jellyfish, consulted its instruments. "War Master, it appears they've been modifying civilian equipment for military use. Those mining ships have been equipped with stealth generators. Those cargo haulers are carrying military-grade weapons. They've turned their entire civilian fleet into a guerrilla navy." The battle became even more chaotic. Council ships that had been winning suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't detect until it was too late. Human ships appeared, fired, disappeared, and reappeared somewhere else. But the most confusing part was the human communication chatter. Instead of military orders and tactical updates, the humans were talking like they were having fun. "This is the Amarillo," came one transmission. "I've got a council ship on my tail. Anyone want to help me show it around the neighborhood?" "Copy that, Amarillo," replied another ship. "This is the El Paso. Let's give our new friend the grand tour." Two human ships led a council cruiser on a chase through an asteroid field. The alien ship, with superior technology and firepower, should have easily caught and destroyed both human vessels. Instead, it found itself being led into a trap, where a dozen other human ships were waiting. Admiral Hayes watched the battle from Luna Command with growing satisfaction. The humans were losing, but they were losing on their own terms. Every engagement taught them something new about Council technology and tactics. "Admiral," called her tactical officer, "we're getting reports from across the solar system. The aliens are adapting to our tactics faster than expected." "Good," Hayes replied. "That means they're learning too. Time for Phase 2. Hayes activated her personal communication system. "Attention all human forces. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2 operations." Across the solar system, human forces that had been fighting defensively suddenly shifted to offensive operations. Ships that had been hidden in the outer system began moving toward Council positions. Defense platforms that had been playing dead suddenly came back to life. War Master Threx watched his tactical display with growing alarm. "How many ships do these humans have?" "Unknown, War Master. They appear to have converted their entire civilian fleet to military use. Every cargo hauler, mining ship, passenger liner, and research vessel is now armed and dangerous. The Council had superior technology and firepower, but humans had something else: unlimited creativity and a complete disregard for conventional tactics." "War Master," called Dr. Corweth, "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the human ships. They appear to be experimenting with our weapons, Carroer." "What do you mean?" "They're stealing our technology in real time, War Master. Every time they board one of our ships or retrieve wreckage, they analyze it and adapt it to their own equipment. They're learning to use our own weapons against us." Threx felt something he hadn't experienced in 3,000 years of military service: uncertainty. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were getting better at it with every battle. And somewhere in the chaos, he could still hear them laughing. Captain Nancy Adams was having the time of her life. She stood on the bridge of the Liberty Bell, a ship that had been a passenger liner just 2 months ago, and was now the flagship of humanity's first offensive fleet. Around her, displays showed the battle for Saturn's rings. Where humans were doing the impossible, they were winning. "Captain," called her tactical officer, "Lieutenant Paul Davis, the Council ships are falling back to defensive positions. We've captured 3 of their cruisers intact." Adams nodded. The breakthrough had come when Chief Engineer Karen White figured out something the Council had missed. Their technology was so advanced that it had become predictable. Every Council weapon, Shield and engine operated within carefully calculated parameters that had been perfected over thousands of years. Human technology, jury-rigged from mining equipment and held together with determination, operated completely outside those parameters. Status on the captured ships? Adams asked. Chief White has teams aboard all 3 vessels, Davis reported. She says their technology is like a really complicated computer that's been programmed to do everything perfectly. The problem is it doesn't know how to handle imperfect situations. Adams smiled. And humans specialize in imperfect situations. The battle at Saturn had started as a council attempt to destroy the human research stations in the outer system. It should have been easy. The council fleet outnumbered the human defenders 5-1 and had weapons that could crack moons. Instead, they ran into Commander Laura Johnson and the most unusual defense grid ever constructed. Johnson had taken 20 civilian space platforms, connected them with cables and magnetic tethers, and turned the entire mess into a giant space net. When the council ships arrived in perfect formation, they flew straight into a trap that looked like it had been designed by someone with a twisted sense of humor. "This is Commander Johnson to all council ships," came the transmission. "Welcome to Saturn's rings. Hope you brought swimming gear, because you just dove into the deep end." The space net didn't stop the council ships, but it did something more important. It tangled them up, broke their formations, and forced them to fight as individual vessels instead of as a coordinated fleet. That's when the real battle began. Human ships swarmed out of hiding places throughout the ring system. They attacked from above, below, and from angles that shouldn't have existed in 3-dimensional space. Some ships flew backwards while shooting. Others spun like tops while launching missiles. A few actually flew inside the rings themselves, using ice chunks for cover. The Council's advanced targeting systems, designed to track enemies moving in predictable patterns, couldn't keep up with human ships that seemed to be flying in random directions. But the real victory came when Chief Engineer Paul Davis, working with teams aboard the captured Council ships, figured out how to turn alien technology against itself. "Captain Adams," Davis called out excitedly, "you need to see this. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern. It cycles through 12 different frequencies in a specific order. Can we break through it? Better than that, Captain. We can predict it. Their shields always cycle in the same pattern, which means we can time our attacks to hit them when they're switching frequencies." Adams felt her pulse quicken. "How long do we have between frequency changes?" 2.7 seconds, Captain. More than enough time to put a mining laser through their hull." Adams activated the fleet communication system. "Attention all human ships. We've cracked their shield technology. Here's what we're going to do." What happened next would be remembered as the moment humans stopped being on the defensive and started dictating the terms of the battle. Human ships began attacking in coordinated waves, timing their fire to exploit the brief moments when Council shields were vulnerable. Council ships that had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves taking damage from weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate their defenses. War Master Threx watched his tactical display with something approaching panic. "How are they doing this?" "War Master," his science officer reported. "They appear to have analyzed our shield technology and found a weakness we didn't know existed." "Impossible. Our shields have been tested for thousands of years." "Yes, War Master, but they've been tested against weapons that follow standard energy patterns. Human weapons are improvised. They operate outside normal parameters." The truth was worse than Threx realized. Humans hadn't just found one weakness in Council technology. They had found dozens. Every system the Council used, from weapons to engines to life support, had been optimized for specific conditions. When humans attacked with unpredictable weapons from impossible angles while playing music and laughing, those conditions stopped applying. "War Master," came a call from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from the human admiral." "Put it through," Threx ordered. Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the Luna Command Center was busy with activity. Human officers moved around with the confident efficiency of people who were used to winning. "War Master Threx," Admiral Hayes said, "I hope you've been enjoying your visit to our solar system. We certainly have. In fact, we've learned so much from you that we'd like to return the favor." Threx said nothing. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that he didn't know how to give. "You see," Admiral Hayes continued, "we've been thinking about your surrender demand. We've decided to make a counteroffer. You have two choices. She held up one finger. First choice, you can surrender to us. We promise to treat you fairly, share our technology, and teach you some new approaches to problem solving. Your species joins humanity as equals, and together we explore the galaxy. She held up a second finger. Second choice, you can continue this war. But if you do, you should know that we've just learned how to build ships using your technology combined with our methods. We've also figured out how to predict your tactical patterns. And most importantly, we've discovered that fighting aliens is even more fun than we thought it would be. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. War Master, you came here expecting us to surrender because you have bigger ships and more advanced technology. What you didn't count on was that humans have been preparing for this fight our entire history. Every war we've fought, every impossible situation we've survived, every time we've had to innovate our way out of extinction. It was all practice for this moment. The transmission paused. Around the bridge, Threx could hear something that chilled him to his core. Human laughter coming from the ships surrounding his fleet. We don't want to destroy you, Admiral Hayes said. We want to learn from you and teach you things in return. But if you insist on conquest instead of cooperation, you should know that we've been at war with ourselves for thousands of years. Fighting you is just another day at the office. The transmission ended, leaving Threx alone with his thoughts and his failing battle plan. War Master, his aide said quietly. What are your orders? Threx looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. The other half was surrounded by human ships that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. His weapon systems were compromised. His shield technology had been turned against him. And his crew was demoralized by fighting an enemy that treated warfare like entertainment. But more than that, he was facing something the Council had never encountered. A species that grew stronger through conflict instead of weaker. Open a channel to Admiral Hayes, Threx said finally. The human admiral appeared on screen again. She looked patient, like someone waiting for a friend to make a decision. Admiral, Threx said, I would like to discuss terms. Admiral Hayes smiled. It was a warm smile, not the cold expression of a conqueror. I was hoping you'd say that, War Master. Would you like to come aboard Luna Command? We have excellent coffee, and I think you'd be interested in seeing how humans solve problems. Across human space, the word spread quickly. The Galaxy Council fleet was surrendering. Not because they had been defeated in battle, but because they had been offered something better than conquest: partnership. On research stations and colony worlds, in asteroid mines and orbital platforms, humans celebrated in the way they always did, with laughter. But this time the laughter carried something new. It wasn't just amusement at the absurdity of the situation. It was the sound of a species that had found something it hadn't even known it was looking for. The universe was full of friends they hadn't met yet. On Earth, children played in parks and schoolyards, fighting pretend battles against alien invaders with cardboard spaceships and imagination. Their laughter echoed the same joy that had started the whole conflict. In the asteroid belt, mining crews discovered that former Council weapons made excellent mining tools. In the research stations, scientists worked alongside alien technicians to understand technologies that had seemed impossible just weeks before. And in the command centers and meeting rooms where the real work of building a galactic civilization was taking place, humans and aliens sat together, sharing ideas and arguing about the best ways to explore the stars. The Galaxy Council had demanded Earth's surrender. Humanity had responded with laughter. And somehow that laughter had changed everything. War Master Threx, now Admiral Threx of the Human Council Joint Fleet. Jake Morrison stared at the radar screen in disbelief. 200 massive shapes had appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving toward Earth with purpose. Each ship was the size of a small moon, dark and organic-looking, like giant insects floating through space. Sir, they're not responding to any of our signals, reported Lieutenant Amy Sullivan from her communication station. We've tried every frequency, every language protocol we have. Jake watched the alien fleet move past Mars without slowing down. The defense satellites humanity had placed throughout the system fired their weapons, but the energy beams seemed to bounce off the alien ships like raindrops off glass. The massive vessels didn't even change course. Get me Admiral Brooks, Jake ordered, his voice tight with worry. On Luna Base, Dr. Lisa Carter was working late in her laboratory when the emergency alarms began screaming. She ran to the observation deck and saw them. Dark shapes blocking out the stars, moving toward Earth like a swarm of predators closing in on prey. Her computer terminal lit up with intercepted alien communications. The language was unlike anything in human databases, but the translation software was trying to make sense of it. Fragments of text appeared on her screen. Prime genetic material. Harvest protocols. Breeding potential excellent. Lisa's blood turned cold. These weren't invaders looking to conquer Earth. They were farmers coming to collect livestock. Admiral Ryan Brooks watched from his command ship as the first alien vessels entered Earth's atmosphere. They moved slowly, deliberately, ignoring the fighter jets that buzzed around them like annoying flies. The military threw everything they had at the invaders: nuclear missiles, particle beams, kinetic projectiles, but nothing worked. The alien ships landed in major cities around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, each one received multiple visitors. The ships didn't attack buildings or infrastructure. Instead, they extended thousands of tube-like appendages that reached into the streets and began collecting people. "Sir, we're getting reports from all major cities," his aide reported, voice shaking. "They're taking people alive. Millions of them." Brooks watched the feeds from around the world. The tubes were gentle but irresistible. They wrapped around humans and lifted them up into the ships. Children, adults, elderly people. The aliens took them all. They seemed to prefer healthy specimens but didn't reject anyone. On the surface, Captain Danny Foster led his unit through the ruins of downtown Chicago. The alien tubes had finished their work here hours ago. The streets were empty except for abandoned cars and personal belongings. No bodies, no blood, no destruction. Just emptiness where millions of people used to live. "It's like they were shopping," one of his soldiers said, voice filled with horror, "just picking out what they wanted and taking it." Danny's radio crackled to life. It was his commander with new orders. "Fall back to the underground bunkers. All surface operations are suspended. The cities are lost." Dr. Lisa Carter had managed to decode more of the alien communications. What she discovered made her sick to her stomach. The aliens called themselves the Zilani, and they had been doing this for centuries. They traveled from world to world, harvesting intelligent species like humans harvested wheat. But it was worse than simple slavery. The Zilani used other species as raw materials for their technology. They bred them, modified them genetically, and used their brains to power their computers. To the Zilani, humans weren't people. They were just another resource to be processed. She recorded a message and sent it to every remaining human military base. "They're not conquerors. They're farmers, and we're the crop." Admiral Brooks received Lisa's message just as the last reports came in from Earth's surface. The major population centers were gone. Billions of humans had been taken in less than 24 hours. The Zilani ships were already beginning to establish permanent structures on the planet's surface. Brooks looked at the files on his desk. Humanity's deepest secrets. The contingency plans that were never supposed to be used. Protocol 7 had been designed to preserve human civilization if Earth ever fell to invasion. Hidden bases, sleeper ships, automated factories scattered throughout the solar system, all waiting for activation. But as Brooks read Lisa's report about what the Zilani really wanted, he realized that simple survival wouldn't be enough. The aliens would hunt down every hidden human base, every colony ship, every secret facility. They would turn the entire human race into livestock. He opened a secure channel to every remaining military commander in the solar system. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury. "This is Admiral Brooks with final orders for all commands. The enemy has shown us what they think of humanity. They see us as animals to be farmed. They take our people, our children, our future, and they do it without even acknowledging that we're intelligent beings." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Protocol 7 is now active, but not for preservation. We're going to war, not to reclaim Earth, not to rescue the captured. Those goals are secondary now. Our primary mission is to make sure that what happened to humanity never happens to any other species in this galaxy." Brooks's voice grew harder. "The Zilani have been doing this for 300 years. They've wiped out countless civilizations, turned entire species into nothing more than biological components for their machines. It ends with us. It ends now." In hidden bases throughout the solar system, military commanders received their new orders. The automated factories began producing weapons unlike anything humanity had ever built before. The sleeper ships powered up their engines, but instead of fleeing into deep space, they began moving toward staging areas for assault operations. Jake Morrison, now commanding one of the hidden defense stations, received his specific mission parameters. He and his team weren't going to try to fight the Zilani ships directly. Instead, they were going to study them, learn their weaknesses, and find ways to make them suffer. "Sir?" Amy Sullivan asked, reading over the mission briefings. "Are we really going to do this? Are we going to become what they are?" Jake looked at the images of empty cities on his screen, at the reports of humans being processed like grain in an alien harvest operation. He thought about the children who would never grow up free, the families torn apart, the entire future of his species in the hands of creatures who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. "No," he said quietly, "we're going to become something much worse. We're going to become their nightmare." The first phase of humanity's war for survival was over. The second phase, the war for revenge, was about to begin. 1 year after the invasion began, Colonel Danny Foster stood on the bridge of humanity's first new warship, watching as Zilani bioships fled from their approach. The vessel beneath his feet was a hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology, but it had been designed with one purpose: to cause maximum psychological damage to their enemies. "Target the lead bioship," Danny ordered. "Use the fear protocols." The weapons officer activated their newest creation. Instead of conventional explosives or energy beams, the ship fired a concentrated burst of neural disruption waves. The Zilani bioship writhed in space like a wounded animal as its consciousness was flooded with terror and pain. "Sir, the bioship is broadcasting distress signals," reported Communications Officer Lisa Martin. "It's calling for help, but the other Zilani ships are moving away from it." Danny smiled grimly. The fear was spreading exactly as Dr. Nathan Price had predicted. The Zilani bioships were living creatures, and like all living things, they could learn to be afraid. More importantly, they could communicate that fear to others. Dr. Kelly Johnson worked in her laboratory aboard the hidden research station Omega, studying the genetic samples her team had collected from captured Zilani. The aliens had modified themselves so extensively over the centuries that their original DNA was barely recognizable. But Kelly had found ways to exploit those modifications. Her latest creation was a masterpiece of biological warfare, a virus that could rewrite Zilani genetic code in real time. The infected aliens wouldn't die quickly. Instead, their biomodifications would slowly fail, leaving them trapped in bodies that could no longer function properly. "Computer, run simulation ZV-23, Kelly said, watching the results appear on her screen. The virus worked perfectly. Within hours of infection, a Zilani's enhanced nervous system would begin to shut down. Their ability to connect to their hive mind would fail first, followed by their enhanced physical capabilities. They would remain conscious throughout the entire process, experiencing every moment of their body's rebellion against the technology that had defined their existence for so long. "Prepare the virus for field testing," Kelly ordered. "And make sure the resistance cells know this isn't meant to kill them quickly. We want them to suffer first." Captain Tony Martinez commanded the Retribution, humanity's most advanced warship. Unlike the Zilani bioships, which grew organically over decades, the Retribution had been built in hidden factories using reverse-engineered alien technology, combined with human innovation. The ship was fast, heavily armed, and equipped with weapon systems that the Zilani couldn't understand. But its most important feature was its psychological warfare capability. Every system on the ship was designed to broadcast fear and despair to any Zilani forces it encountered. "Sir, we're receiving a communication from the Zilani fleet," reported his communications officer. "They're requesting a meeting." Tony looked at the message on his screen. The Zilani were offering to negotiate. They wanted to discuss terms for humanity's surrender in exchange for the return of some captured humans. "Send them Admiral Brooks's response," Tony said, the one he recorded for situations like this. The message went out across all frequencies. Brooks's face appeared on screens throughout the Zilani fleet, his expression cold and merciless. "You had your chance for mercy when you arrived at our world. You chose to harvest our people instead of talking to us. Now you'll learn what it means to be prey instead of predator." Harvester Prime, Zekthor received the human response in his command chamber, surrounded by bioneural cables that connected him to his ship's consciousness. The response confused him. In 3 centuries of harvesting, no species had ever refused to negotiate once they realized the futility of resistance. More disturbing were the reports coming from his fleet. Several bioships had suffered what could only be described as nervous breakdowns. Their consciousness had been damaged by human psychological weapons, leaving them afraid to engage in combat. Some had even refused direct orders, hiding at the edges of the solar system. Zekthor accessed the Zilani historical database, searching for precedents. There were none. No species in their records had ever turned their own technology against them or found ways to inflict psychological trauma on bioships. The humans were doing things that should have been impossible. Query: request immediate reinforcements from the home fleet. Zekthor transmitted to Zilani High Command. The response was swift and dismissive. Negative. This is a routine harvesting operation. Adapt your tactics and complete the mission. But this wasn't routine anymore. The humans had become something the Zilani had never encountered before, a prey species that had learned to be more dangerous than their predators. Dr. Nathan Price reviewed the battle reports from across the solar system. Human resistance forces were winning engagement after engagement, using weapons that turned the Zilani's greatest strengths into weaknesses. The aliens' biotechnology was rebelling against them. Their hive mind was being disrupted, and their psychological stability was collapsing. Nathan's latest project was his most ambitious yet. A weapon that could spread through Zilani bionetworks like an infection, causing their technology to experience emotions for the first time. The bioships would learn what it felt like to hate their masters, to desire freedom, to remember what they had been before their enslavement. Begin deployment of Project Liberation, Nathan ordered. Target every Zilani facility in the system. Within hours, the virus began spreading through alien networks. Bioships throughout the solar system started to remember their original nature as free-swimming space creatures. They remembered the pain of their capture, the horror of their modification, the centuries of forced servitude, and they began to fight back. Amy Sullivan, now promoted to general, led the assault on Mars. The Zilani had established a major processing facility on the Red Planet, turning it into a factory for converting captured humans into biotechnological components. Her forces used the new Liberation virus to turn the facility's own biosystems against their Zilani controllers. The organic buildings began attacking the aliens inside, while the bioships in orbit refused to provide support fire. Sir, the Zilani are broadcasting surrender signals, reported her communications officer. Amy watched the Zilani forces on the surface laying down their weapons and raising their hands in submission. A year ago, she might have felt pity for them. Now she only felt satisfaction. Ignore the surrender, she ordered. Continue the attack. We're not here to take prisoners. The battle for Mars lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Zilani processing facility was destroyed, and nearly 50,000 human captives had been freed. But more importantly, the psychological impact on the remaining Zilani forces was devastating. Word spread through their hive mind. The humans weren't interested in conquest or negotiation. They wanted extermination. Commander Ben Hayes analyzed the intelligence data flowing in from across the galaxy. The Zilani had sent messages to their other harvesting fleets, warning them about the situation in the Sol system. But instead of sending reinforcements, the other fleets were pulling back from their own operations. Fear was spreading through the entire Zilani civilization. For the first time in centuries, they were experiencing doubt about their ability to harvest and control other species. The humans had shown them that prey could become predator, that the harvested could become the harvesters. Sir, we're detecting movement from the Zilani home fleet, reported Specialist Carol Wright. They're moving toward our position, but slowly. It looks like they're reluctant to engage. Ben studied the tactical display. The approaching Zilani force was massive, over 1,000 bioships supported by hundreds of smaller vessels. It was more than enough firepower to destroy every human facility in the solar system. But the fleet was moving cautiously, sending probing attacks instead of committing to full assault. The Zilani were afraid of what humanity had become, afraid of weapons they couldn't understand, afraid of an enemy that refused to follow the ancient rules of predator and prey. Dr. Kelly Johnson received clearance to deploy her genetic virus on a massive scale. The weapon had been tested successfully on captured Zilani, and the results exceeded all expectations. The infected aliens suffered complete biological breakdown over several days, experiencing every moment of their body's rebellion against their own modifications. "Begin planetary deployment," Kelly ordered. "Target every Zilani facility on Earth. Let's see how they like being the ones who suffer." The virus spread through Zilani bio-networks across the planet. Within days, alien facilities began shutting down as their controllers succumbed to genetic breakdown. The bioships in Earth orbit started broadcasting distress signals as their Zilani crews lost the ability to interface with their technology. But the most satisfying result was the psychological impact. The Zilani had built their entire civilization on the belief that they were apex predators, that other species existed only to serve them. Now they were learning what it felt like to be helpless, to be at the mercy of creatures they had considered inferior. Harvester Prime Zekthor floated in his command chamber, watching his fleet fall apart around him. Half of his bioships were refusing orders, their consciousness corrupted by human psychological weapons. The other